Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're all well. And we're live. Check the comments. Alaikum assalam, Sarah. I haven't been this early in a few weeks now, mashallah. Yeah, I'm actually late, aren't I? I mean, I started this one. Normally we do it at 9 or 9:15, but I had a few things to take care of, so couldn't start now. Assalamu alaikum, just a Muslim. Good to see you again as always. Alaikum assalam. Iron Man. Hope you can all hear me, because I think I'll get started in a minute, because I'm worried that this one will take quite a long time. What is this saying? Yeah, yes. رب أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك أن يحضرون. All right, okay. Oof, what's going on behind me? All right, okay, let's get started with this. Maybe some of you had a chance to see the description. I'm not sure. I mentioned that, this will be talking about Ibrahim's birds and God's call. Just give me a second. All right, sorry about that. You can also still hear me okay? Hopefully. All right, okay, so. Oof. All right, so we're going to be talking about Ibrahim's birds. So it's the famous verse in the Quran about Ibrahim asking God to show him how he will bring life to the dead. So we're going to be talking about that. I put in the description a link to Mufti Abu Layth, because I think he has what he says about this is generally spot on, I think. Well, I believe it's the correct way to understand that verse. But I'm going to be expanding on it a little bit. And by the way, if anybody who doesn't know, Mufti Abu Layth, he is doing these very very excellent live streams now. He used to have the Monday nights with Mufti. He stopped that a while back, due to the incident that happened involving him and his family, unfortunately. So our prayers go out to them. But he started up something else called Meaning with Malam. So it's excellent type of podcast, because it's very similar to what I've been doing here. I mean, it's a lot of contemplation on the verses of the Quran and stuff. So I would highly recommend everybody to check those out. Okay, so the famous verse is this verse. It says, "أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ قال إبراهيم ربي أرني كيف تحيي الموتى." And when Ibrahim said, "Oh my Lord, show me how you bring life to the dead." قال أولم تؤمن? He said, "Don't you have faith?" قال بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي. He said, "No, but just so that my heart can have tranquility, to be settled." Okay. And then he tells him what to do, right? فقال فخذ أربعة من الطير, take 4 of birds, فصرهن إليك, okay, then incline them to you, okay, and then place upon each mountain from them a portion. Then call them, and they will come to you in a hurry. And know that God is Azizun Hakim, is mighty and wise. So here's the verse in English. Generally, it's the same translation as Sahih International. I've just made a couple of small amendments. It says, and mention when Ibrahim said, "My Lord, show me how you give life to the dead." Allah said, "Do you not have faith?" Okay. He said, "Yes, but I ask only that my heart may be tranquil." Okay. And he said, "Then take 4 birds and commit them to yourself. And that's how they've got it in Sahih International. Surhun, they've got it down as commit them to yourself. Okay. Then put on each hill a portion of them, then call them, Ad'uhunna, they will come to you in haste, and know that Allah is mighty and wise. Now, the traditional understanding of this, of course, is that what Ibrahim did is he got 4 different types of birds. Some say ostrich, an eagle, a sparrow, things like this. Okay, and then what he did is, fasurhun ilayk, the traditional understanding is that he was told to kill them, basically, to kill them and chop them up. Okay, and not only chop them up, then mix up their bodies and then place a portion of each of this sort of mixed up bird meat on 4 different mountains, okay, and then call them, all right, and they will come to you running, okay, and in that way, God is showing Ibrahim proof of how God brings the dead to life, okay. So that's the traditional understanding, but there's some problems of that. There are a lot of problems, and I recommend again to see the video that's linked in this description from Mufti Abu Layth. He explains it much more succinct than I could, I think. But one of the problems is that the use of this word sur, okay, fasurhunna ilayk, okay. This word, has various meanings, but it's used, for example, cockroach is called a sarsar in Arabic, right? Because it makes the sar sound, okay, this chirping sound, okay. So sur is also used to mean chirping noises that things will make, okay. So the birds will chirp, okay. And the word also comes, it's the same root you have israr. Israr is to commit to do something, to insist on something, right? So one of the things which is condemned, for example, in the Quran is the israr on the ma'siyah, okay? وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا هُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ, right? God says about those who الذين إذا فعلوا فاحشة ذكروا الله, those who when they do a fahisha, they remember Allah and they seek forgiveness for their sin. وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا, and they do not insist on what they have been on this evil action, this sin. They don't keep insistently doing it. Okay, so same sort of word. فَصُرْهُنَّ إِلَيْكَ, make them insistent, ilayk, to you, O Ibrahim, make them insistent to you, like committed to you. Okay, so if this had meant kill them and just chop them up, there are much better words to be used in Arabic than that. Okay, it's very no. What would it mean? You kill them to yourself. What would that mean? No, you have sirhun ilayk. Okay, sirhun, to yourself, to you. So that use of that instead of kill or slaughter or cut them up, that's problematic for the normal understanding. Another thing is that Ibrahim couldn't have seen these birds resurrected. Okay, so remember, Ibrahim is told to put them on mountains. Okay, so he's put some on each 4 different mountains. Okay, even if you say he stays on one mountain, which of course doesn't make sense. The point is he puts them on mountains and then he's back on the ground and he calls them. Okay, now what will he see? Even if he has a telescope to look at one mountain, right, the top, and see a bird, pieces of bird coming back together, that's not a proof for him. All he will see is these birds flying to him. Okay, how will he even know that these were birds that he killed or chopped up or stuff like that? If you're going to be skeptical about it. But the point is that Ibrahim couldn't have seen the birds actually coming back to life. If they were chopped up birds on these things, on these mountains, killed birds, and he's down on the ground calling to him, he would not see the resurrection, right? Okay, so what proof is that? Third thing is that Ibrahim wasn't asking for proof anyway. He didn't ask for proof. That's why, when God said, do you not have faith? He says, no, I have faith. Okay, so what is he asking? Okay, what is he asking? He wasn't asking for proof of the resurrection. He wanted to know specifically how it would be done. Okay, how it would be done. And this elaborate task that God gave him, okay, it wasn't for him to have proof. It wasn't for the former reason. It was for him to be shown the latter, to be shown how it would happen. Okay, and the key to understanding what this verse was showing Ibrahim and thus us as well, okay, is that just ask yourself the exact same question Ibrahim asked: how will God resurrect the dead? How will God resurrect the dead, and how will He reunite the souls of the bodies? And the answer to that, for this ummah is we have it in the Quran. Ibrahim didn't have this, we do, okay, and it will be via God's call from the earth. So just as Ibrahim was being told, do this with these birds. Now, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I didn't. I'm assuming most of you know the explanation that Mufti Abu Layth gave on this, but I'll go through it again. So the idea is that what Ibrahim was told to do was just to make these birds inclined to him, okay, to feel love and inclination to him. So basically, like rear them and make them committed to himself. Like you would have like a pet, right? And a pet really loves you and stuff. And then to put these birds on the mountaintop and then call them, okay, and then they would come to him. Okay, so what is the key element of this task that Ibrahim is supposed to do? It's the call, right? It's call them and they will come to you. Call them and they will come to you, right? So all the things before that are just preparation. Take four birds, any four birds, surhunna ilayk, make them inclined to you, committed to you. This is just preparation. Okay. Now the task. The task is put them on these mountains and then call them and they will come to you. Okay. And so getting back to what I was saying, that this is basically what God was giving him a practical example of how he himself will bring people back to life, which is via a call from the earth. And we have this in the Quran, in the verse which is in Surah Rum, verse 25, it says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, and from his signs, أَن تَقُومَ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ بِأَمْرِهِ, that the heavens and the earth remain, really it says stand, تَقُوم, by his command. Then when he calls you with a single call from the earth, ثُمَّ إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ دَعْوَةً مِنَ الْأَرْضِ إِذَا أَنْتُمْ تَخْرُجُونَ, immediately you will come forth. إِذَا أَنْتُمْ تَخْرُجُونَ. So basically, this is what Ibrahim was being told to sort of imitate or do. He was being shown this, okay? That, the answer to, رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى, how will you bring the dead to life? It will be through a call. Okay, so Ibrahim was being told to do it with a practical example, to do the same thing. Just as God will through a call from the earth, will bring us back, bring us out from the earth, the same way that Ibrahim will be, Ibrahim was told to do a similar sort of thing. So this incident of the birds was God showing Ibrahim how to simulate, in a way, this call, which is how God will bring the dead to life. Okay, because the best way to learn or understand something is to actually do it, right? To actually do it. Let me just check. I'm being heard over here. All right, it's fine. No comments of audio not working. Okay, good. Okay, so he was to call the birds from the mountains that would never normally come down to you. Okay, birds would never normally come down to you. All right, and normally nobody can bring the dead back to life. Okay, let alone make them, either antum takhrujun, will you just come out as soon as God calls. So in the same sort of way, these birds normally cannot be called to you, right? But through this example, God was showing how he would be calling the souls back to their bodies, all right, to Ibrahim. Also note the end of the verse, okay? It doesn't say, and know that God is able to do all things. It doesn't say, وَعَلَمَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, okay? Because Ibrahim, again, he was not asking about God's ability or how the actual mechanism of bringing the dead back to life, okay? Whereas in another verse, there's another verse in the Quran which talks about the person who says, "Anna yuhyil hadhihi Allah ba'da mawtiha." Okay, how will God bring this to life? And then God makes him die, and etc. And at the end of that, I believe, I need to probably check this, but I believe it says, "Know that God is capable over all things." But even if it isn't that way in that verse, definitely here, if this was about God's ability or Ibrahim was asking about that, it would be, that would be the ending of the verse. The endings of verses are very important when God mentions his names, or these last sort of like signing off of verses. Okay, so if this had been about that, if this had been about the traditional understanding, then the end of the verse should have said something like, "I know that God is capable to do all things." Okay. All right, because it would be about the ability, but instead, the closing of the verse is, "And know that God is Azizun Hakim." Okay, Azizun, mighty and wise. Okay, Azizun Izzah, honorable or able or whatever. I mean, the translation here isn't mine. So Azizun, sort of mighty or exalted and wise, because he was being shown the how. Okay, the wisdom of it and the Izzah behind it. Okay, that there's real Izzah here, right? There's real, like, exalted mightiness, right? That just with a call, you will come running, Okay, just with a call, people will come out from the earth. Okay, and in the same way, Ibrahim, just as what you called to these birds and they came to you, okay, people will come flocking to God in the same way. There's more symbolism in these verses, so I'm just going to go quickly over them. So first of all, of course, why birds? Okay, well, birds are free. They fly. They are difficult to catch. They naturally fly away from you. Okay, they are the most difficult of things to be able to call to yourself and have them respond. Okay, so because of all this, they represent the soul. And of course, there's many other ideologies. The birds are represented by spirits, right? Or spirits are represented by birds. Okay. But if you make their nature, these birds, you make their nature one of love to you and desire to you, then even from faraway hills and tops of mountains, the spiritual plane, so to speak, okay, if you call them, they will rush down to the ground, to the earthly plane, to you. In the same way, the souls will rush down from up high down to the bodies on the ground, on this earthly plane, okay, because you have made them such that they recognize you and your call. Right? In the same way, when God calls, everybody will recognize that call. When he calls to us with a call from the earth, all will recognize him. All will recognize it. Okay. So birds are also constantly used, like I said, in imagery as metaphors for the spirit, like the white dove as the Holy Spirit in Christianity. Okay. The teaching is such then that the souls and the spirits with God or with their bodies, when called to, will return. Okay, when He calls them back with a call from the earth, i.e., from their own bodies that they are familiar with and love, they will rush to go back, flying down from higher places. So there's a double inclination here. There's the inclination of rushing towards God's call because it's God who is calling. There's also the rushing towards the bodies, the rushing towards the bodies. And so in this metaphor, the birds represent the spirits, and Ibrahim the bodies, and his call to them represents God's call. Okay, da'watun min al-ard. Okay, the call to the spirits from the earth, from their bodies. Okay, and then the spirits will come down, rushing to the bodies. And why mountains? Well, their being in the high places means they must fly down, right, to the earth in response to the call. And in the same way, the souls are on high and must come down to the earth to reunite with the bodies. And why four? So there's another, why does the verse say take four of birds? Well, obviously these must represent the four types of souls of people, if we're going to go with what we're saying here. And they will all respond in the same way, okay? And these four could be, the mu'minun, the munafiqun, the kafirun, and the mushrikun. That's generally what I would go with. Though, of course, this probably need more thought, okay? But we could divide generally, okay, in terms of religion, okay, all will fall under, these categories. They are mu'minun, they are munafiqun, they are kafirun, and they are mushrikun, okay? And this includes, non-Muslims can fit into these, like mu'minun. Yeah, you can have many non-Muslims who are mu'minun, right? It's not only about Muslims, so I've avoided saying Muslims here. Okay, why does another thing? Why does verse 30:25, the one which I said, that the verse which links this with the verse about Ibrahim, the one where it says when he calls to you at a call from the earth, it starts off with saying, and of his signs is that the heavens and the earth stand, literally rise, taqum, by his command. Before then speaking of the resurrection, then the verse continues with the resurrection. And here, of course, again, you can put the symbolism as heaven means the souls and earth is the bodies, as we mentioned. Okay, there's also another verse related to this, okay, this same idea. It's in Surah Al-Isra, verse 52. It says, يَوْمَ يَدْعُوكُمْ فَتَسْتَجِيبُونَ بِحَمْدِهِ وَتَظُنُّونَ إِن لَبِثْتُمْ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. On the day he will call you and you will respond with praise of him and think that you had not remained in the world except for a little. So again, it's how will God resurrect us? يَوْمَ يَدْعُوكُمْ, when he calls, it will be through a call, right? Through a call. And it's also, this is an attainable experiment. That's the last thing I'd like to mention, that this is something which is pretty much all of it's open to us now to do. Somebody right now wants to know how will God, bring the the dead to life, you can do this, right? You can actually do this. Get some birds and try to do this, right? Try to make them committed to you and stuff like this. Okay, nurture them so that they are inclined to you, and then put them on mountains and call them. I wonder if anybody is ever actually going to be able to do this, because I don't think this is something which is going to be limited to Ibrahim. Okay, I don't think there's something which is limited to him. Yeah, if we're going by this interpretation, this is something which it's open to anybody. Anybody can do this. All right, so that's it. That's basically everything that I wanted to share here. Let's bring back. Let's have a look at the chat. How long was I talking for? 20 minutes. Not too bad. Let's have a look at the chat and see what we have. Okay, so it's here. Fire. As you mentioned about the bringing back to life after death of the body, I have read Jesus Christ brought back to the life an individual. Yes, to heal mota bi-idhnihi, right? It's in the Quran that one of the signs, the miracles that Isa had was he brought the dead to life. Okay, he brought the dead to life, and he also created birds from clay, and he blew in them, and they became alive by God's permission. Okay, so it's a similar, similar to this reading that we're given of Ibrahim. These were actually, I think, actual miracles. Here, somebody else has a question here. In ancient times in India, pigeon was used as a messenger to deliver letters. Yeah, pigeons, messenger pigeons were used all around, right? They were used also not just in India. They were used in the UK, in Europe. Okay, homing pigeons they were called, because they would fly back home, and you just have to you take your pigeons, take a stock of pigeons from a place that you would want to send a message to, and then wherever you go, you just tie a message to that pigeon's leg and let it go, and it will go back to that place where you took it from. Okay, homing pigeons. Okay, and that's very, very interesting when you think about it in terms of this same this example of Ibrahim, right? فَصُرْهُنَّ إِلَيْكَ ثُمَّ دُعْهُنَّ يَأْتِينَكَ سَعْيًا. It could be a very, very similar sort of thing, right? That you have the homing pigeons, right? You take your pigeons from London, you go up to Newcastle, right? And you want to send a message to London, you attach the message on the pigeon, and it flies down to London, right? So another reason probably why birds are in this example, call them and they will come to you, right? Because they're inclined to your place. So these, in this example, these pigeons would be inclined to London, right? To their home in London. That's where they grew up, right? So again, this is a very attainable example. Anybody could do that. With pigeons, I suppose, would probably be the easiest thing, right? You get pigeons, you raise them, then place them in some hills. Call them and they will come to you, right? Call them and they will come. Okay. All right, good. I don't have anybody backstage, so if anybody has anything else they would like to add, please go ahead. Otherwise, we might be ending today's stream early. Looks like we have more people on, 14 people viewing. For those who came late, I was just adding something to this idea of the explanation of the incident of the birds in Ibrahim, with which Mufti Abu Layth gave, and I'm not sure if he's the only one who came up with it. I heard it only from Mufti Abu Layth, and I think it's spot on. But I've connected it. I'm just connecting it with this verse. Go back and find it. This verse. Okay. ومن آياته أن تقوم السماء والأرض بأمره ثم إذا دعاكم دعوة من الأرض إذا أنتم تخرجون. So Ibrahim was being made to simulate this. Okay, that the way God will bring people back to life is by calling them with a call from the earth. So this practical example which Ibrahim was made to do was to simulate this. Okay, this is what he was asking about. How will it happen? And the traditional idea that it was just he cut up and killed these birds and put them on mountains and then called them, they came, that doesn't really show you anything. Okay, Ibrahim would not have been able to see these birds come back to life on the top of these faraway mountains. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see if there are any more comments. All right, good. Over here, Khababa, Islam Khabab. I think it is also that Allah has reared and raised us since birth, and we were inclined to Him and will return. Our Rabb comes from yes, tarbiyah, exactly, raising. Yes, exactly. This is basically exactly what Mufti Abu Layth was saying about that. That that in the same way the souls have this inclination to God because we know Him even from before coming into this world. The days of Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? We said yes, and so our spirits, are inclined to our Lord no matter what. So no matter the type of human being, whether mu'min, kafir, munafiq, mushrik, okay, when God calls, okay, we will respond. As that other verse, that last verse I brought up, which was, يوم يدعوكم فتستجيبون بحمده, right? On the day that He will call you and you will respond by His praise. All of us, right? The mushrik, the kafir, the munafiq, everybody. When He calls us, we'll respond by His, with His praise. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, right? That's exactly the idea that Mufti was putting forward about this. That um, such is the inclination of the souls to their Lord, that when He calls them, they will come. Okay, so this incident of Ibrahim was just him reenacting that. How are you all doing? Yes, we're doing fine. Alhamdulillah. What else do we have here? لا تعبدوا إلا الله إني لكم منه نذير مبين. Thank you. Let me put this in. Okay, now we saw that already. And how about this heal the blind, Nalipa, by my leave? Yeah, exactly. So that's the verse that you were asking about. Prayas. The verse Ayman has put it in there for you. I don't trust Mufti 100%. Well, you shouldn't trust anybody 100%, maybe. No, well, I mean, you should trust the people that you know 100%, but I mean, people online, even me, you shouldn't really trust me 100%. Okay, just try to you get to know people and you know who you can trust and who you can't. But no, Mufti Abu Layth is somebody who is doing a lot of excellent work, and he's open-minded and he thinks, and he's helped a lot of people, regain their faith. Let's see if there's any other questions. Hope you don't mind. Yeah, you can ask about another topic, no problem. It'll be nice if you could come on. Can you come on? And we can actually speak. If not, no problem. When the Prophet Muhammad destroyed the Asnam, I believe it was symbolism, so we learned to break the stones in our minds that we inherited from our ancestors. Are you talking about the Prophet Muhammad or Ibrahim? Talking the Prophet Muhammad didn't destroy idols until he came to and the destroying of the idols in Mecca was after everybody had become Muslim. Okay, so the idols were in the Kaaba. He destroyed them after the reconquest of Mecca, and everybody was Muslim. And he told the people to destroy the idols, and they did. People, anybody who had an idol and they wanted to keep it at home, they could have, but everybody became Muslim, and they destroyed the idols. It's not this, Don't forget, he was there for 13 years in Mecca. He didn't destroy any idols. Interesting connection. Zuriyab, Assalamu alaikum, Zuriyab. Excellent to see you. Interesting connection. Unrelated, but what do you think about the verse which says Jews claim Israel is son of God, and not being son, but the temple building stemming from the roots of the word? I have no idea about that, to be honest. Zuriyab. You have to, give me more to work on and give me more time to think about it, but I've never heard of this, so I can't really comment on that. I like the idea that Ezra was Osiris. I think that's spot on. There's a very good channel. I think it's called Qur'anic Arabic or something, or learn Qur'anic Arabic. Okay, which has a lot of excellent verse analysis in Arabic, and he put forward this view as well, that Ezra is actually um, when the Quran is talking about Uzair ibn Allah, Uzair here is Osiris, because the Bani Israel, when they came out from Egypt, they still had a lot of they were still basically idolaters. They were still very much so pagans. Musa in Egypt did not have time. He wasn't there teaching them Tawheed and things like this. Musa in Egypt, he wasn't teaching them Tawheed, and the Israelites had basically become idol worshippers, same as the Egyptians. They worship the Egyptian gods and the same. Okay, so Osiris being the son of God in sort of like the Egyptology, it makes sense. Moses and Harun did not have the Torah, not the Torah, but the Kitab that Musa was brought, and tell your people to hold on to this. This is all later, much later. This came much later, right? During the time in Egypt and the flight from Egypt, Musa didn't have time to be teaching them Tawheed and Iman and these things, which is makes it more understandable to see how they very quickly reverted to taking the golden calf as an idol. And by the way, it's very interesting that nowhere in the Quran does Allah say that the Israelites worshipped the golden calf. They didn't worship it, in terms of the word worship, in terms of the word ibadah. Okay, they never worshipped the ijl, even though it's commonly said among Muslims. They know the Quran says ittakhadhu al-ijl. They took it, as an ilah, as an idol, but they were never in ibadah to it. Okay, and this is pretty key when I'm talking about not my, but what Hassan Malik says and others, that ibadah is about servitude. Okay, and you cannot be in ibadah to an inanimate idol, something which doesn't command. Mufti Abu Layth actually quoted you last week, I think. I think it was like I said, Mufti Abu Layth is doing these excellent these meaning of Manam. I'd recommend everybody to watch them. It's actually put perspective for me in some things, because there's a lot of things of his I would like to watch, but the videos are very long and I never get to watch them. But he took out that part where basically he's talking about he brought up the chart which I made of those whom Allah loves and those whom Allah doesn't love, and he was speaking about that. Zariab, you're backstage. Okay, I'll bring you on in a minute. Okay. He brought that up and he was speaking about that. Everybody, I would recommend you to watch that video, because he did put in a few other insights. But I'm very skeptical about destroying historical monuments. Yeah, at the time, these weren't really monuments. I mean, these weren't monuments. These were just many idols in the thing, in the Kaaba. And like I said, they had been left there by people. I think there were 360 or more. A huge number, small, big, made out of various things. There wasn't that much reverence to them. People need to really realize this, that the shirk that was going on, which the Quran condemned, it wasn't really about the idols. It wasn't about the inanimate idols. Okay, that wasn't an issue. It really wasn't an issue. Okay. You got timestamps. Yeah. I know Zirab, if you just go to his channel, you'll find he's talking. He's got a video about God's love in the Quran. Zirab, I'm going to bring you on just because you're waiting while I go through these. these comments. Okay, bring you on at the stream. So Tayr is thought, and Allah is showing Ibrahim an example of how we form our thoughts and then put them aside. But when we need them, we just call them and they come similar. Hadith, deaths. Okay, mashallah. That's a very nice understanding. I've never thought of that. Okay, that's like I remember reading those Sufi tafsirs, right? They're like that. I like it a lot. Okay. As God mentioned, travel for the earth and observe. Yes, exactly. Al-Din again. I agree with the Uzair as Osiris. Yeah, I think that's a very convincing argument. One of the unusual things is that the Holy Quran does not mention the term Tawheed. Yeah, exactly. I was saying this to somebody a while ago. I don't know where. It was a comment either on Reddit or YouTube or somewhere, that there is no Tawheed. Quran doesn't mention Tawheed, in that kind of way. Yeah. Oops, what was that? Tawheed means to cause something first. Yeah, to me, one. To make something one. All right, okay, good. Anyway, Ziryab, you're gonna come on. There was somebody else backstage just for a minute, but then they disappeared. Ziryab, you're muted. Shall I unmute your mic? Oops, there we go. Unmuted. Assalamu alaikum, Ziryab. I can't quite hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. How are you, bro?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, very good, very good. Yes,
I thought I'd just let you get through your comments, and then we can have a brief discussion.
Yeah, go ahead now. I've gone through them.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting. I came across the idea from someone who's a researcher, a Qur'anic or an academic Qur'anic researcher, based in the UAE somewhere. I'm not sure which uni he's attached to, but he's named Abdullah Galadari, and his research is very interesting because, I mean, there's lots to say about it. But the one example I gave, and it was a bit of pushback to the idea of Uzair being identified as Osiris. He presents an alternative, and his argument is that basically the word Ibn is not to be understood as son necessarily, but it could also be understood from the root as being temple, in like Beni, as in like, like to build, and then from there to kind of build a temple, a house, and so on and so forth. And the reason why I'm even entertaining this is because, of course, the difficulty or the kind of problem that we run into of the traditional understanding, as the traditional understanding is basically not corroborated in any Jewish literature. We don't find any Jewish literature which preserves that any group at any point in time said Ezra is the son of God. But if we entertain this idea that it's the Ibn in that verse is not son but temple, it makes much more sense in the context, because obviously Ezra and the second temple was instrumental in the second temple, right? And then the verse also continues and says the Messiah, and they say that the Messiah is the temple of God. Which also, it kind of follows through, makes sense even in that sense. I think, and to be honest, I think because the second part of that verse regarding the Messiah fits in if it was understood as son, people just then kind of assume that that also applies to Ezra.
That's what I was gonna say, because to me that would make just more sense, because it's saying, it's almost saying, they say this and they say this, but then the next verse, how the next part of the verse, how would that go? Because it's true that the Nasara, the Jews, the Christians do say he says the Son of God, right? And then the next verse says about both of these groups, both the Jews and the Christians, they say, that they are following the words of those before, right? That they are following the words of those before them, right?
Yeah.
So it seems to be that they're both doing the same thing. I would say, It's an interesting thing. I never thought of it that way, but
You know why? Because
if you had,
just to kind of add on, and it might help you in the way, kind of, as I sense that you're entertaining it now. The broader research he's into is intertextuality, and he also does intratextuality. So he kind of looks for within the Quran, but then he also looks outside of the Quran in terms of. So there's many examples he gives. But I was listening to an interview on a friend's channel earlier today. He interviewed him, and this is one thing that stuck out. But it's in that context of intertextuality of kind of just to go back to the point about Messiah and claiming the Messiah is the Son of God and Ezra is the Son of God. For me, that doesn't suit leaving that aside, just to follow through as the temple, entertaining the idea that they claim they're the temple of God. I think that also works. If anything, what at the stage I'm in now, because I would argue that I'm leaning more towards this temple idea, given the linguistics of it is sound, and given that historically it's sound as well. I'm sure that I know that both of those groups would use that kind of flowery language to describe these people as the temple of God, or or the building of God or something. And it's interesting because in that intertextuality, he gives examples of this Ibn being used in Hebrew, in Jewish literature as building or as temple. So he gives an example of where in a particular passage, it argues that don't make or make your children builders, something like, and it's like a play on words basically. So this play on words is used in this other, so intertextually it works, I found it fascinating. But if you are interested, as I say, his name's Abdullah Baladari, and you can find his stuff.
I'll look for him. Definitely send me a link about that, because that would be I would like to look into that. I mean, the objection, you're right. The objection that was always put out was that we can't find this written anywhere for them, right? That they say that Jesus is Yahud, that they say Uzair ibn Allah, right? But even that, the objection to that is answered in one respect in the verse, right? Because the verse says, it says ذَلِكَ قَوْلُهُمْ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ, right? That this is saying they say with their mouths, so it's it's not written down, so to speak. And that Jesus is being the begotten Son of God, that idea, it was never written down for as part of actual scripture in Christianity either, right? That Jesus is the in terms of the actual, it was just words that were said. Of course, words should be later be written down. So that's a counter argument against that as well. But yeah, it's interesting, and I definitely have to have. I wouldn't mind having a listen to that view, but I mean, it would have to be a very, very strong argument, because I think it's just because just the way the verse is laid out, right? وقالت اليهود عزير ابن الله وقالت النصارى المسيح ابن الله, right? And it says ذلك قولهم بأفواههم, right? So that's the saying that they say, so both of them. So I would just the bare fact that it's known that the Nasara say the Messiah, Jesus, is the Son of God, right? That just it corresponds, it just mirrors the first part of the verse. So you would have to almost, like you said, naturally say that the Jews say Uzair ibn Allah. Now, one other thing we need to be hesitant about is that don't forget that we are not living in a special time, in history where everything has been discovered, right? Because we sometimes tend to think about this. Okay, there is nothing, nothing has been found where no textual evidence where the Jews say that call Uzair the Son of God, right? Well, now for us now, but in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years after our deaths, we don't know, right? There are many things that we have now that are corroborated in the Quran that that historically that 200 years before wasn't, right? Or 300 years or 500 years. So we have to be resident, and not everything in the Quran is for us, right? Some of it won't be for us, right? We won't have that information for it really. So I'm happy sort of to just say, okay, there isn't, okay, but in terms of faith, I can think, yes, one day it might be found, right? One day, such things will be, and new manuscripts and things are being found out all the time, right? And new ways of.
Yeah, sure. No, that's perfectly
So-
reasonable. I understand that, and that's fair enough. And
Mhm.
that I wouldn't argue against that at all. It's just I found it very interesting, and it
Yeah,
was
it's very
something that I'd never considered myself. It was almost like a cul-de-sac that I'd driven down into, and was just had to stop. But then I found a little another way I could go around. I was like, interesting. Yeah.
No, I'd still want to look at it. Especially if he shows other parallels and other things. Yeah, I'd like to have a look at it. So definitely send me the link for this guy. I'll have to watch. The issue these days is just not enough time to see everything you want to see. Right? All of us, so much things.
Yeah, no, of course.
To read and to presentations of people. That's another reason why I should really try to get back to making short and succinct videos, because like I said, even Mufti Abu Layth, somebody I admire, I'd like to listen to more of his stuff. I don't have the time. Alhamdulillah though. Alhamdulillah. Let me see, I've got another person backstage that I'll bring on in a minute, Irfan. Let me just check the chat very quickly if there's anything else. What about Metatron? Metatron, is that Megatron? The second person in heaven, according to the certain mystical branch of Judaism. Oh, okay. I've never heard of that either. There you go. That's
I'll make some space for the other person. Yeah.
Do you know about this? Do you know who this Metatron is?
No, I can't say I do. Oh, right. Okay. According to certain mystical branches, I don't know how it connects, but I'm assuming he's kind of referring to the Kabbalah and that kind of.
Yeah, that this could be the son of God for some of the Jews. This is Uzair basically. All right. I don't know, but interesting.
Hey, anyway, I'll pop off now, inshallah.
All right. Okay. Wa alaikum salam. Thanks a lot for coming on. Enoch was taken up and became an angel, and they gradually deified him as a god. All right, I see. Okay, so this is a Metatron that they think was Enoch, Sayyidina Idris. For Asnan, it's feminine in 1433, women as idols, masculine in 21, because they had Allah and 21. I'm not sure which verses these we're talking about here. Al-Din. I'd have to go back and look them up. You screenshot that. Okay. Interesting. And here we have another rabbit hole to look into. Isa alayhi salam possibly predating the composition mystery character of Jesus Christ by centuries. Yep, many rabbit holes. Alhamdulillah. All right, let me bring on Irfan.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I had a very short question that I guess I want up. It kind of does not relate to the discussion on hand, but it was just something on my mind.
You've got a sort of screeching. You've got a sort of screeching in your background. I think there's some backfeed or something, maybe.
Sorry, man. I'm in a park, so a bit of noise there.
That's fine. Go ahead then. No problem.
Okay, so my question is just about ritual prayer itself, right? It's in Arabic, so for non-Arabic speakers, was this like the intent? You could say for the majority of the non-Arabic speakers, who would they be able to perform it, or is there a possibility that there might be more openness towards this? So, for example, not everyone knows Arabic, right? So, how would they go about performing it?
Yeah,
I guess. Do you get a sense of what I'm saying?
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. Yes, I understand. Basically, put it bluntly, you do not have to pray the traditional way at all. Okay, you can in fact invent your whole way of praying completely from scratch. Okay, you do not. The ritual aspect of the salah is not what makes you a person of salah at all. Okay, at all. right? If you want to be one of the musallin, you look at the verses where God actually describes these are the musallin, right?
Yeah.
It says in Surah Al-Ma'arij in Surah 70, okay, it describes these qualities, illa al-musallin, and then it lists them, okay, 17 qualities. This is what you need to be of the musallin, right? Somebody who prays, however, just by just sitting down, okay, and meditating or whatever it is. However, it doesn't matter that type of salah they make. They can pray to any salah they want. Okay, the
Right.
previous
So
peoples are praised for their salah, right? So the Jews were praised for their salah. They didn't pray in Arabic.
right.
Okay,
Right.
they didn't pray in
Yeah.
Arabic.
So the
So
reason I asked you this is because generally, in a lot of cultures right now, the trend is that they perform the salah, all five prayers of the day, and
yeah.
a lot of people, I realize that they don't know necessarily what they're reciting.
Yeah, they don't know what they're reciting, and it's a burden a lot of the time. Not always,
Yes.
you can still make it into a great meditation. You can still do the salah even without knowing Arabic, and it can still be incredibly fulfilling. Okay, it still can
By
be.
by reciting the Quran.
By reciting the Quran many, okay, let me give a very simple overview of the way that you should try to approach Salah. Okay, so you need to take it more as a meditation. Okay, more as a meditation. When you stand up in your first posture in Salah, okay, for example, just say in your mind to yourself, or try to feel it in your body, in your bones. Try to feel it. That God is watching you. That God is with you, that God is looking at you right now, right at that moment. Okay, try to just capture
Okay.
that feeling, even for just a second,
Okay.
just for a little bit. Okay, and then when you're doing your ruku', same thing. Okay, try to just capture that feeling. Okay, imagine that you are
Okay.
literally bowing in front of God, and try to capture that feeling that feeling of presence. Okay,
Right.
once in just each posture, just try to capture it once. Okay, try to do that for like a week, for 40 days. Okay, and
Yeah.
then try to capture that feeling like 3 times in each posture, right? Then try to expand it more, and very very quickly you'll be shocked about how quickly it will happen. It starts to just pervade your whole salah. Okay, where you start to have a real sense of presence in the prayer. It becomes a real
Right.
meditation, right?
Right. And I
Uh,
guess that's the actual message behind prayer, it's to connect with God, right? At the
Yeah,
end
I
of the
mean,
day.
even the word salah comes from sali, which means like the sal and lam. It means to connect, right?
Right. Right.
Connect when you connect things. A prayer connects somebody to somebody else. It's a connection, right? It
Yeah.
has to be a sort of connection. But in terms of the actual rituals, I mean, for
Yeah.
example, I couldn't couldn't figure out a better way to do salah than the way that we've inherited from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that's not the only way you can pray. And doing the prayer ritual that way, it can actually become a real burden. You know, I spoke about this in those video essays I have about Surah Al-Din, right? And about an example, a shaitan example. I have 2 videos about this, and they're mostly about this issue of salah, right? In one of them, we had this guy he's moved on, by the way. He's not how he used to be, but at the time he was a very sort of extremist sort of thought. Where he's saying, the person who misses one salah, all right, just one salah, all right. Um,
Yeah. I
um,
think I know which video you're talking about.
yeah, that person who recently one salah, okay, you're worse than a rapist, a murderer, this, blah, 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 all this nonsense, okay? That's not true, okay? That there's some people who do their salah and their salah is waylun lil musallin. It's woe to those who do salah. Okay, that's not the salah. Waylun lil musallin, alladhina hum an salatihim sahun, those who are
Yeah.
heedless of their prayer. Yeah, it doesn't do anything for them. الذين هم يراؤون
Right.
ويمنعون الماعون. Those who are just to be seen, because a lot of the time the salah is the main ritual people see. Okay,
Yeah.
it's just to be seen. The outward. Okay, ويمنعون الماعون, but they will not give any help. They prevent help. Not
Yeah.
even they won't
Yeah.
give. They prevent it. Okay, the
Yeah.
salah is completely turned upside down in many ways. Okay, and the Prophet was very very open with the salah, incredibly open, about how people
Okay.
prayed. They never made that issue. They asked him, "How do you pray?" Just pray as you see me pray. Okay, and that's it. Okay, he didn't teach prayer really. didn't teach, okay,
Now
do
there,
this.
there are verses in the Quran, obviously, where God is saying that the Prophet was praying all night. What do you
Yeah,
make of that? Is that like
no, so
um,
yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
the verse, those verses are very interesting. I was actually almost going to speak about that verse. This is the last verse in Surah Al-Muzammil. I was about to speak about that today, but I thought I'd do this topic instead. But that verse, it's first of all, it's addressing the Prophet directly, and it just says, God knows that you are praying for half the night, for a third of the night, for
Right.
two-thirds.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, that's the
that's
verse I'm
what
talking.
yeah, that's what you do. إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك, and some of those with you. والله يقدر الليل والنهار, and God is he measures out the day and the night. Okay, he knows that you can't count this, you can't continue this. Okay, so instead read what you like of the Quran. Read what is easier for you to read of the Quran instead of doing this. So this was God just making things easy. This was something that the Prophet was placing upon himself. Okay, it wasn't
I
something
see.
that he
Okay.
had to do. Okay,
So in a sense, this was God. This is like Allah almost correcting or giving another option for the Prophet.
just giving ease for the Prophet, saying, "Look, I know you're doing this. You really want to please, and you're committed. You're doing salah for this much, okay? And
Yeah, makes
God saying,
sense.
God knows you can't do all this, so instead read what you can of the Quran, right? Instead of that, right?
Yes, and also there are other verses which kind of instruct or command to spend portions of the night pr- praying to God. Would that
Yeah.
be correct to say that?
No, so again, those are addressing the Prophet. Those ones which are saying that. I think you're talking about وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ. Okay, saying, and of the night, pray in it. نَافِلَةً لَكَ, an extra thing for you. Okay, Muhammad. عسى ربك أن يرفعك مقاما محمودا, أن يبعثك مقاما محمودا. And maybe that your Lord will raise you up to a praiseworthy station. So these are all addressing the Prophet. Okay, they're sort of instructing him, to do this. But yes, prayer at night is a very good thing. It is a very good thing. If you
Is
can,
there
if
like a
you,
particular significance to praying at night as opposed to praying at just like the regular hours, the five
it's
prayers?
calm. I mean, try it, right? Try waking up in the middle of the night and spending some time in just the silence of the night in salah. First of all, the day and its troubles are far away. Okay, they seem much further away, and you have the silence of the night with you. Okay, and it's a calm time. Most people are asleep. Okay, and even yourself, you're much calmer. If you've woken up from bed, all right, all the stuff which you at the end of the day you've been accumulating in your mind, what been thinking about, that hasn't
Yeah,
happened yet. Hasn't happened
yeah,
yet. You've had your sleep. You've gone up. You're sort of rested, fresh, and it has a lot more impact on the soul. So
yeah.
it's
That makes
mentioned in the
sense.
Quran. إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا, right? You have during the day you have so much toil to get through. Okay, you know.
Yeah, that
Again,
makes
that
sense. Yeah.
verse, yeah. So again, that's at the start of that verse that you mentioned before. In Surah Al-Muzammil, يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا. نصفه, أو زد عليه, or increase a bit more or less. All right. So, or you who is wrapped up, stand up for a night in prayer. Half of it or less or a little more, and that's what he was told. And I also think that the last part of that verse where it was reduced, okay, it was reduced. It was more so reduced for those with him, okay. It was more so reduced for those with him because
What do you
God.
mean reduced?
So what we're saying that the verse that you mentioned in the beginning, right? The one which where God says to him, God knows that you are praying half the night and two-thirds of the
Yeah,
night,
right.
and yeah. And then it was saying, and he knows that this is difficult for you, basically paraphrasing.
I see. I
And
see.
so instead, recite some of the Quran. That was mostly for those who were with him, because now in this verse, what is mentioned, وَطَائِفَةٌ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ مَعَكَ, some of those with you, because some of the early followers of the Prophet, whatever he did,
Yeah.
they wanted to do. Okay,
Yeah.
So this
Right.
this verse of sort of like easing thing was really mostly for them. Okay,
To
mostly
give
for
relief,
them.
basically.
Yeah, to get relief for them. I mean, they couldn't, do what the Prophet did. The Prophet, don't forget, he was like this. He was a person of prayer, deep prayer and contemplation for many years before the Quran, many years. Right?
Right.
He used
Right.
to
Yeah.
go. He used to go. If you ever been to Mecca and tried to climb Mount Hira, where the Prophet received his revelation, it's
Yeah.
extraordinary. How did he get up there? Right? It's like
Yeah.
a perilous thing all the way up, and he used to go there and stay, stay for days. Okay, with nothing but
Yeah.
just a little bit of provision. Sometimes Ali would go up there and bring him some food and stuff, or Zaid. Okay, but he would be
Yeah.
in the mountain for a long time. He was a person of prayer and fasting and charity from long time before the Quran. And then suddenly the
That's
Quran comes
interesting.
and
Yeah.
he's praying in he's praying for half the night, a third. Okay, these people
Yeah.
who are with him, they can't suddenly do that. They can't.
Yeah.
Right. So it was eased up more for them than for him, I think.
And one more thing, at the start of the surah, I think you just mentioned it just a
Yeah.
moment ago. You said, "Oh, you cloaked one," right?
Yeah. Oh, you cloaked one. يا المزمل قم الليل
Yeah.
إلا قليلا. Yeah.
So what is that referring to? Is that just a state of being asleep, or
Yeah,
what?
because he was just at the time when this revelation was sent down to him. He was cloaked in the beginning. They say that because he used to be frightened by the revelation, right? This was something new. So those some of the first surahs, one of them is Ya Ayyuhal Muddathir, or you who is wrapped up in your mantle, okay. And
I
then
see.
and this one, Ya Ayyuhal Muzammil, this is from when the Prophet even came back from his first revelation and he came to home and came to Khadija, he said, Dathiruni, Dathiruni, cover me up, because he was shaking, right?
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
covered him up with a blanket just it's
Oh, I
comforting,
see.
right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
comforting, right? To be comforted. So, it's almost like saying, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, qum, Ya ayyuhal mudaththir, qum fa'anzir in the other verse, in the other surah. Or you who is wrapped up, okay, get up and warn. Don't
Yeah.
wrap yourself anymore. It's sort of like,
Okay.
don't be huddled up anymore. Don't be,
Yeah.
worried. Just
Basically,
get up, get up.
don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Get up and warn. It's said in a nice way. يا أيها المدثر قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر. Right. And
I
the other
see.
one,
Okay.
يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا. He who is wrapped up, right? Stand up for prayer. Right. Some of
Yeah.
etc. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much for answering my questions. I'm gonna sign off now.
All
You
right.
take care.
Afwan, no problem. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. We have somebody else
Allah Hafiz.
backstage. Allah Barik. Okay. We have. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hey, salam khabab. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Good to see you on.
Yeah, I'm always on. I'm always on listening,
Yeah.
but doing other things at the same time usually.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Good, nice.
Okay, so I mean, I just wanted to kind of add to the discussion about Salah that was going on, and because I think I very much agree that anybody can pray in whatever way that brings them closer to God, but also at the same time I kind of recognize that there is what I would say the Sunnah of Allah, which is kind of transcendent through all of the previous traditions also, and you can see kind of glimpses of that. So if you kind of would compare the Orthodox Christian way of praying and Orthodox Jewish way of praying, you'd find that they're all very similar, and even in wudu, they're different. The differences are very kind of subtle and slight. And if you analyze the parts that are actually different, you'll find that where they originate from is usually dubious sources. So for example, hadith that are not particularly well authenticated or found very differently in different hadiths. For example, the number of times you wash and so on, and the beginning parts of the wudu, and all of these things are not found consistently within the Abrahamic faiths. Are possibly not part of the Sunnah of Allah, as I would think of it as.
Yeah.
And then also, if you look even at the Prophet and Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and how he came about, praying in the way that he did, you'll find that from the beginning he was praying, way before the Isra and Miraj, as we're kind of taught to believe this is where he was kind of given the final revelation of prayer. But in that incident, Ayyuhal Muzammil and so on, he was praying at that point. And when Ali radiallahu anhu came and found him praying with Khadija, when it was just him and Khadija that were the first Muslims, he found him praying. Other incidents where he's praying in front of the Kaaba with Khadija and Ali, and other people are watching him and thinking, okay, what's going on? There are sort of several incidences where he's praying and seemingly in a similar way to the way that we pray now, And I suspect that what he did was just kind of pick up on the already existing Abrahamic tradition that was already there, and he just carried it on and maybe changed some things, slightly based on the revelations, but in essence, the sunnah of prayer is there. So I think to me, there is something sacred about the method of prayer that's been inherited. Yeah. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I think, generally, the general thing I think is definitely true, because look, like for example, the wudu, like you said, okay, we have that in the Quran, right? How to do the wudu is in the Quran, right? The specifics of it is in the Quran. That's being carried on, right? So this is, you can say this is part of the deen, right? Part of the deen. Yeah. In terms of the salah, the number of salah isn't really there, but we have, mostly what the Quran is talking about is salah times. Yeah. Right, so it's 3 times essentially, 3 times, right? It's salah periods. Pray in the first time, middle time, last time. So the prayer times are more important than the number of prayers, in the Quran. That's why the number of prayers are not mentioned in the Quran, but the time periods when you pray is mentioned in the Quran. Okay, and part of the salah is mentioned in
those time periods are pretty much the same as in the Jewish.
Yeah, exactly. So when you mentioned before that the Orthodox Jews, right? They pray, in those same, 3 times a day, right? 3 times a day, basically 3 time periods where they can pray, from this time to Dhuhr, then they've got from Dhuhr to like Isha to Maghrib, then they've got from Maghrib until like almost half the night or something like that. Okay, so they continue in that. What I meant by in terms of and regards to the Prophet, he was, like you said, he was doing salah before that. He was praying before that, because salah is a general idea, it's a general term, it's prayer, right? So the Jews, when they pray, though, for example, even to this day, and the Orthodox Jews, they don't do exactly what we do, right? It's not like they stand, ruku', recite. They stand, recite, then ruku', then stand up, then come do 2 sajdas, then sit up. They don't do exactly the same, okay? So it's still a salah. The salah has always incorporated sujood, and ruku', it seems, right? But the specifics of how the Prophet prayed before Islam, before the first revelation, we don't know that. I mean, there's nothing that I know about that's narrated about that, right? So we don't really know how they say that some of the narrations say that he used to pray 2 rakats in the sort of the morning time and 2 in the afternoon, until the 5 salawat came. But in fact, how did he actually pray? What were the movements, the specifics thing? We don't know about that. And this is what I mean when I say that the salah is open, in terms of somebody can reinvent a salah. Okay, it doesn't have to include all of these things, right? There's nothing in the Quran which says salah should have a sujood, or it should have a ruku', or should have that. But it is, like I said, an uswa, right? It's an uswa of the Prophet. And I mentioned this in that video about uswa versus versus sunnah, that the Prophet had a uswa, right? And God commanded us or recommended to us his uswa, and from his uswa was the dhikr. And of course, one of the most important ways of dhikr is the salah. Aqimu salah li dhikri. So the Prophet's uswa in salah is definitely, I don't think there's a better way of doing salah. I don't think there's a better way that you can think of doing salah. But for example, somebody in the I don't know, Eskimo in the igloo, to do salah, sajda onto the the snow or ice, that might need to be reworked or something. I don't know. or in other places, it's what I want to mention is basically that if you take what the Quran says about the salah, okay, that can be adapted to the way any culture anywhere around the world prays. Okay, so we have, for example, in the Abrahamic faiths, okay, they come to us, let's say that the salah has its origins in Ibrahim. Some people say that, right? Some people say that the salah that we have now, no, the prophet, it didn't come from the prophet, it came from beforehand, because the way of Ibrahim, exactly the same. All right, but if it's from Ibrahim, that's just Ibrahim. What about the rest of the world? Okay, what about the way that the people in China or Japan or wherever, Aborigines in Australia, there's all of these people all around the world who have a method of devotion. They have a method of devotion, and if you take what the Quran says about salah, okay, that can be added to their ways. Okay, it doesn't have to. They don't have to do the Abrahamic way. Okay, it can still be however they had their devotions. It can be adapted into this. It can be adapted into this. Okay, so however it was, they could now before they do it, they wash, they do the wudu. Okay, and then they should do it in certain times. They should have regular. In the salat kanat ala mu'minina kitaban mawquta. وَقِيمَ الصَّلَاةَ طَرَفَيِ النَّهَارِ وَزُلُفًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ, right? The two ends of the day and in the near part of the night. So now they have the time periods, okay? And more important, all the rest of it, قُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ, الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ, right? These things are much more important. So somebody like this, for example, an Aborigine in Australia, taking what the Quran says about salah and adapting their local way of doing salah into that, all right? And then if they are doing it in the way that the Quran is saying, they could have their salah could be much more pleasing to God than the Imam of Mecca, who is he's doing this, he's doing salah, but at the same time he repels the orphan, right? He doesn't يمنع الماعون, right? He doesn't give neighborly assistance. He's teaching, he's not abiding by his pledges, right? Not preserving his chastity, because all of these are mentioned as the qualities of the Musallin, right? So no matter, even if he did his salah was a carbon copy of the Prophet Muhammad or of Ibrahim, if he isn't fulfilling the things of the salah, in the salah tanha anil fahsha wal munkar, right? If it's not doing that, as in one hadith says, فَلَمْ يَزِدْ مِنَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا بُعْدًا. The only thing that this salah is increasing him from God is further. He's moving further from God because of his salah. Whereas this person, the Aborigine in Australia, who has adapted his salah in the Qur'anic way, right? This person's salah could be, will take him to Jannah. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْجَنَّةَ, right? So that's what I would say about it. I think it's what is mentioned about in the Quran about salah, and how anybody, when I say anybody can adapt a salah however they want. Yes, still within the paradigm of the Quran. Okay, still within the paradigm of the Quran, and as long as they have that, and as long as they are focused on that, it's much better than it's the key part, basically the key part of the salah. So that's what I would say about that. But generally, yes, I mean, the salah that I pray is still the 5 times a day salah. I mean, people sometimes, you see in the Quranic circles, people arguing constantly about how to pray from the Quran. There isn't a way expressed how to pray in the Quran, because God didn't want to put a way of how to, exact, sacred, specific way of doing salah ritually in the Quran. He did for wudu. Okay, he did for wudu. Right, so if he did it for wudu, he could have done it for salah, right? But he didn't. So he deliberately left out, and the focus is on other things about the salah. Okay, it's never about the actual rituals. That's what I'd say. But the way that the Prophet Muhammad did the salah, and when you get into that way of salah, it is a remarkable way. It's a remarkable way of salah. I don't think anything else can compare to it. Yeah, so that's what I'd say. Are you still on?
Yeah.
I'm quiet.
Yeah. Sure, I agree. I'm just listening. I'm listening.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. Yeah, my point was more about that. There's consistent sunnah going back through
Yeah.
the prophets.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah, I think
maybe further than Ibrahim, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
and there are some even through other cultures and in
Yeah,
the
I
world.
mean, it has what you're saying there has
The Jewel is still there.
yeah, I mean,
But
what you're saying there has a Quranic backing, because Ibrahim says, let's say, he says that رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي. Okay, oh God, make me of those who establish salah, muqim salah, and from my dhurriya, from my children, from my descendants. So you'd expect that in every generation of Abraham's descendants, there were those who were doing salah. And Ismail is talked about in the Quran as a person of salah, right? And he was, of course, in Arabia, and so he was doing salah. So that the salah came down, okay, definitely. I think the general features of it did come down. I don't think that it came down in terms of, the number of rakat of, Fajr. I know you're not saying that, but just to tell everybody else to hear it. So, but he had the general idea of the salah. Yes, definitely, it's Abrahamic in nature. But because I've heard other Quranists, they will say, the actual 5 daily prayers, the way they are exactly, is how Ibrahim did it, and I don't think that's
I've seen all those arguments.
yeah.
Most of them to be quite sort of convoluted and something that we need we should do every day.
Yeah,
more clear if it was there, but it's
what annoys me about those arguments. It's like I said, there seems to be, unfortunately, and I think it's because of a reactionary to traditional Islam, Salafism in one way. There seems to be a rush away from Muhammad, all right, to others. Right, like, no, okay, this was the way Muhammad prayed. No, it wasn't. I want the way that Ibrahim prayed, right? Instead of, there seems to be this sort of thing, and it's a shame, because it's it's part of the sort of the damage that's been done to the Prophet's reputation, even subconsciously in Muslims' minds, that they sort of shriek away from anything. Those who are sort of like trying to re-understand the Deen, they would sort of like back away from the Prophet Muhammad, whereas they would rush towards Ibrahim or Musa or Isa. But Muhammad, it's a big shame. I see it a lot for example, in the issue of the salawat, right? That some are very, very hesitant that the Prophet Muhammad should have any kind of distinction that had been given to him by God. It's like, no. The salawat that Allah says, Inna Allah wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. I say, no, this is the same as for all prophets. You should do this for all prophets. No, we're commanded about this by God to the Prophet Muhammad, specifically for him. Okay, and God does not mention salawat on any other prophet. So there is this unfortunately, there's this sort of backlash.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So the other thing, I wanted to mention, since this thing is supposed to be about to the Tadaburat and that type of thing. So I'm thinking about Surah Al-Asr.
Yes.
And you've obviously spoken about it before, and I've heard other people speak about it. But my just a thought about it is, so it starts with Wal-Asr. And the Al-Asr isn't just, I don't think it's just specifically just the time issue, but Al-Asr itself as a time is mahsur bain al-Dhuhr wal-Maghrib, and it's like so it's a short span of time that is, sort of squeezed. So, if we were to say, a person is mahsur, they're under pressure. Under pressure. Yeah. So it kind of would follow on then, inna al-insana lafi khusr, which would mean that mankind are in loss because they're squeezed. They're under pressure. Illa allazina amanu wa amilu salihat. So that's the way your way out of the the state of pressure. Sabr, and you can't do it on your own. You need to encourage each other.
Mashallah, that's brilliant. That's excellent. Yes. I never thought of that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, see, that's the thing is, when you look at the Quran, there are things which when somebody says, even before they finish saying, then you see it, because it rings so true. wal asr, the word asr, yes, time and things. I never thought of it that way, but yes, exactly. Asr in Arabic also means to squeeze, basically. Ya'sur al-asir, right? He's squeezing the juice. Like juice literally means in Arabic, saying in Arabic, asir, right? Asir is juice, right? Something which is squeezed out, right? So al-asr, that's very interesting. I'm gonna have to think a lot more about that, but yeah, that's very interesting. Wal-asr, by sort of the squeezing, right? Wal-asr innal insana lafi khusr, right? When you're in a situation of difficulty or things like this, when you're being squeezed, okay, you will be in loss, except those who have faith and do good deeds and help each other. الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Yes, mashallah, yes, that's brilliant.
That's where patience comes into it as well.
Yeah, because exactly, if you're being squeezed, you have to have patience. And this will be linked also with the other, with Surah Al-Inshirah, right? إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, right? So part of the usr, the difficulty, is al-asr, and the yusr will come from, being, having faith and doing good deeds and, and helping each other in haqq and sabr. MashaAllah, yes, that's definitely, that's a good one. That's an excellent addition. That's an excellent addition to the caravan. Thank you. Brilliant.
Okay, no problem. I think it's way past an hour, so you probably want to finish. So
yeah, I'll finish. Ziryab is here again, so I'll bring him on first. But
okay.
yeah, Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Salam. Okay, Ziryab, bring you on again.
Assalamu alaikum again.
Alaikum salam. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum again. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I found a relevant passage from the guy's book.
Yeah.
Abdullah Galadari, and he's got a book out. It's on the Qur'anic hermeneutics, and it's called Qur'anic hermeneutics, intertextuality, and something, a long title, but yeah. Okay. So in the relevant passage about Ezra, he does a really good job of giving an overview of all interpretations, traditional interpretations, and he even mentions how Tabari realized that there was no Jewish community that actually said Ezra was the son of God. So Tabari claims that maybe one Jew called Phineas claimed Ezra as the son of God. And he goes on and he kind of covers all these, but then he also then kind of questions, why would the Qur'an, and this is a quote, why would the Qur'an mention a statement like that about a small Jewish sect, if it ever even existed? So this is on page 330 of the book, right? Qur'anic hermeneutics. So he goes, there is yet a possibility that we might have misinterpreted and misunderstood the meaning of the term son of God or Ibn Allah. And it's interesting here, now when I read that, it reminded me that in other passages where quote unquote son of God is mentioned, it's not, Ibn Allah isn't used. Is it? The walad is used, or a kind of form of walad.
That's true, yeah.
Which is interesting. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. I thought that was just a noteworthy point. But then walad, yeah, exactly. A little boy. So he goes on to say,
sorry, go on.
To quote, he goes on to say, the Quranic verse is trying to explain the meaning of the term, but exegetes might have overlooked it. Using intertextual polysemy might provide us with an alternative interpretation of the term. The term for son, or ibn, which is rooted in the term banya, right, ba-nun-ya, and its various morphologies, is found in the opening passages of the book of Ezra in the Bible, but it is not understood in the sense of son, quote unquote. And then he's quoting from the passage, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of God spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm and to put it in writing. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build Libunut, a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah. any one of his people among you, may his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem in Judah and build Ibn, the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel, the God who is in Jerusalem.
Okay.
End quote. And this passage is Ezra chapter 1, verses 1 to 3. So it's interesting to look at the Hebrew of that, but he kind of gives the relevant Hebrew words. The book, then he continues and says, the book of Ezra discusses the building of the second temple in Jerusalem. The word for son is Ibn, with its root Banya or Ba-Nunya, which besides meaning son also means building, or the verb to build, and also means stone. Therefore, the Son of God, Ibn Allah, may also mean building of God, or more precisely, the temple of God. The Talmud makes use of the wordplay, and this is what I was mentioning earlier, but with a specific example. The Talmud makes use of the wordplay with Banya by stating about children, quote, read not your children, Banayich, but your builders, Bonayich, right? And this is in the Babylonian Talmud, Berachot 9:164a. Matthew 3 and 9, so Matthew chapter 3 verse 9, and Luke 3:8 state Jesus saying, quote, God is able from these stones to raise up children for Adam, end quote. Although the Peshitta uses the terms kifa for stones and bra for children, it only makes us wonder if it were meant to also make a wordplay between stones, abanim, and children, banim. The root term for ibn is ba'nun or ba'nunya, which is a polysemous term that can mean either son or building. And this is in Lisan al-Arab. He mentions how this isn't even in question in terms of his reference. And in Hebrew and Aramaic, ba'nun or ban is used to mean son and to build. And the root Hebrew term ba-nun ha means to build. And then Genesis 2:22 shows God taking the rib of man and building Yibin, a woman. Perhaps in that sense, a son is also called Ben, one who is built by his parents. From the same root, the term. Yeah,
okay. You know what? You're convincing me now more and more of this, mashallah. But so I'm getting the idea now about it. That the verse in the Quran is basically saying, وقالت يهود عزير ابن الله وقالت النصارى المسيح ابن الله. That this sort of means that the Masih is basically the church of God. You know, I can because I'm starting to see that from the Christian point of view, that the only way to God is through the Masih. Right.
That's subhanallah. Yeah.
The God is the Masih is the temple of God, basically. You know that you can't reach God except through the Masih. Right. That's the sort of thing I'm getting from this. Right.
That kind of it's an interesting jump that you made there. To be honest, I haven't seen him make that point, but it resonated with me as soon as you said it. It's an interesting an analysis of the kind of exclusivism these groups would propagate, and how God is saying that no, there is no religious exclusivism.
That's what I mean. So it will be like sort of talking about religious exclusivism, and they are following the way of those before them who are also religious exclusivists with regards to whom they think is their founder. Sort of even us Muslims are like this now, right? That the only way to the temple of God is Islam only, and that's it. Outside of Islam, you know, you are not of God, right? In that kind of way. But then, how would that work with the Jews? Did the Jews say something about that? I mean, what I'm trying to say is, what is being criticized in the verse in the Quran? If we take this view that it means temple, and what is being criticized? I can understand it, again, with regards to the Christians, if we understand this way. That temple, that Ibn means temple. So what is being criticized is that, you know, Christ is the temple of God. The Messiah is the temple of God. That, you know, the only way to God, anything outside of Christ is away from God. I can understand that, right? That is being criticized in the verse in the Quran. But what is being criticized when you talk about temple for Uzair? What is the thing there? That's what I'd like to think about. Do you have any ideas? But I mean, what does he say? What does he say that the Quran is criticizing?
Yeah, he spends a lot of time on. It's very painstaking, this argument that he builds, and it's very, very in depth. But then at the end, to answer your question, he gets to a point where he says that, and this is again from the book. It says that in the book of Ezra, the term Ibn is used in the context of an instruction to build God's temple. If we intertextualize it between the Qur'an and the book of Ezra and contextualize the Quranic verses in accordance to the biblical narration in the book of Ezra to build the temple of God in Jerusalem, then we may have an alternative meaning for the term Ibn Allah. Then he goes on to say that it could be a Quranic allusion of the Jewish belief that the temple of God is in Jerusalem, as stated in the book of Ezra, about building the second temple. Nonetheless, the term Azr, which is the root of the name Ezra or Uzair, is a polysemous term with various meanings. It means help in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic. In addition, Azara is sometimes associated with the ledge surrounding Ezekiel's altar. As such, Qur'an may be the verse in question 930 may be translated as, and the Jews say Ezra or temple court is the building, temple of God, and the Christians say that the Messiah is the building or temple of God. More correctly so, the Christians do indeed state that the Messiah's body is itself the temple of God. Also, the Messiah, Ibn Allah, might be a reference to God's stone, Ibn, that is a stumbling block, as referred to in the New Testament. And then he goes on and gives a reference for that. Then I'm just trying to skip ahead to the point, and because I know your question is a pointed one, and it's more so for the what's the relevance for the Jewish criticism.
Yeah.
I haven't got to that part yet, basically.
Oh, okay. Inshallah, when you get to it, come back and let us know.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely going to share it. But what I'll do is I also just take some snapshots and send this to you, send the passage to you, because it is interesting and it's in depth as well.
Very interesting, very interesting. Because that, when you said that, that it's true that Quran it says always Waladullah. Yeah, it's no problem. It always says Waladullah. It always says Waladullah, right, in the Quran when it's criticizing the. I'd have to go back now and see all of the verses which are talking about the criticism of the Christians in terms of Jesus being the Son of God. I'd have to go back and look at some of those verses. Are any other verses using the word Ibn? I can't think off the top of my head right now. If they are, لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله ثالث ثلاثة. You have that one. You've got لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله هو المسيح ابن مريم. But there's no, لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن المسيح ابن الله or something like that. There's no verse like that in the Quran. So it definitely very interesting that I'd have to look more into that. It's very interesting. But I would still in any understanding of this, I would still insist that there must be a relationship.
You know what? I've got it.
Okay, go on.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go on. Go for it. Wait, you're cutting off. Maybe go on. Start again. Say again. No, you're cutting off a bit.
I'm really excited, but I've got it.
Okay, go on.
Is that better now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes on to say, in the context of Temple of God, then what seems to be the Quranic objection? That's your question, right? What's the objection if it's just about Temple of God? Since the Quran, and quoting from the book now, since the Quran continues to state that this is a saying with their mouths, بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ, it may be intertextualized with other passages of the Quran where this term is also used. And I love this kind of method or this kind of approach. So then he goes on and gives a quote from the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 118. And he says, "O you who believe, take not intimates apart from yourselves. They will not stint you in corruption. They wish you to suffer. Hatred has appeared from their mouths, afwahihim. Yet what is in their breasts what their breasts conceal is much greater. We have indeed made clear the signs for you, were you to understand. And another verse in the same surah, Surah Al-Ma'idah 3:167, and that he may know the hypocrites, and it was said unto them, come fight in the way of God, or defend yourselves. They said, had we known there would have been fighting, we would have followed you. So had we known there would be fighting, we would have followed you. That day they were closer to disbelief, lil kufr, than belief, lil iman, saying with their mouths, bi afwa'ihim, what was not in their hearts, exactly. And God knows best what they conceal. O Messenger, and it continues, it says, O Messenger, let them not grieve those who hasten into disbelief, fil kufr, from those who say we believe with their mouths, bi afwa'ihim, while their hearts do not believe, and those who are Jews, who listen to lies, and to others who have not come to you. They distort the meaning of the words, saying, if you are given this, then take it, but if you are not given this, then beware. For whomsoever God desires that he be tried, thou hast no power to avail him against God. They are those whose hearts desired not to purify. Theirs is disgrace in this world, and in the hereafter they shall have a great punishment. And that's in 5:41 of the Quran. So then he continues, and this is obviously his commentary. He says, in these Qur'anic passages, it seems that when the Qur'an uses the term with their mouths, it is contrasted to that which is, it is contrasted that what they say with their mouths is not the same as it is in their hearts. So basically it's contrasted to what is in their hearts. Also, Qur'an 9:30 mentions that when the Jews and Christians say things with their mouths, they imitate the unbelievers of before using the term kafaru. This term is also found in Quran 3:167 and 5:41, as mentioned above. This could make use of a different understanding of the Quranic passage. If the Jews and Christians are making a claim about the temple of God, it is nothing but a saying with their mouths, implying it is not in their hearts. Perhaps the Quran here is suggesting that the Jews and Christians should not only say where the temple of God should be, either in Jerusalem as stated in the book of Ezra, or the Messiah himself as stated in the Gospel of John, John 2:21, but also they themselves should have their hearts as a temple of God, in which I have argued in an article that the Qibla passages of the Quran are in reality an allusion to the Shema, emphasizing the role of the heart over the direction of the prayer. And this is an article he's written on the Qibla. It's available online. Then he goes on saying, from the same Quranic chapter, the term with their mouths would be afwa'ihim is also used in the following verse. How, since if they prevail over you, they will not observe any kinship or treaty with you, they please you with their mouths, while their hearts refuse, and most of them are iniquitous. That's 9:8. So the Quran here, so then he goes on and says, the Quran here shows a contrast that what their mouths say is dissimilar to what is in their hearts. It appears that the Quran later states that those who claim the temple of God to be that in Ezra or the Messiah attempt to extinguish God's light with their mouths, and God desires not to allow it. They desire to extinguish the light of God with their mouths, but God refuses to do aught but complete his light, though the disbelievers be averse. So the above passage is also found in a different chapter, which subtly uses a term rooted in ba nun ya. So whatsoever is in the heavens and whatsoever is in the earth glorify God, and he is the mighty, the wise. O you who believe, why do you say that which you do not do? Grievously odious it is to God, it is in the sight of God that you say that which you do not do. Truly God loves those who fight in his way, in his way in ranks, as if they were a solid structure. Bunyan.
Bunyan marsus, yes.
And when Moses said, and when Moses said unto his people, O my people, why do you hurt me, though you know well that I am a messenger of God unto you? So when they swerved, God caused their hearts to swerve, and God guides not an iniquitous people. And when Jesus, son of Mary, said, O children of Israel, truly I am the messenger of God to you, confirming that which came before me in the Torah, and bearing glad tidings of a messenger to come after me.
You cut off. Come back. You cut off the Ziryab.
Oh, where did I cut off?
just while you're reading the next verse where Isa ibn Maryam says, yeah.
To
Before it's
Jesus
part Isa
says,
ibn Maryam, yeah.
okay. So then he
Mm,
goes
so
on and
just-
says,
mm,
and messenger unto you. So when they when Jesus, son of Mary, said, "O children of Israel, truly I am the messenger of God unto you, confirming that which came before me in the Torah and bearing glad tidings," right? And when he came unto them with clear proofs, they said, "This is manifest sorcery." And who does greater wrong than one who fabricates lies against God while he is being called to submission, Islam, and God guides not wrongdoing people. They desire to extinguish the light of God with their mouths, him, but God completes his light, though the disbelievers be averse. 61, 1-8.
I see. Okay.
So to wrap up, he then goes on to say the phraseology of Qur'an 9:30.
Yeah, 9:30. The phraseology of Quran 9:30. You're cut off. So that's why I'm saying that. Say again.
And 61:8.
Sorry, repeat that. You said the phraseology of Quran.
Yeah, the phraseology of Quran.
You keep cutting off. The connection is bad, and we've lost you. Actually, we've lost you. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. There we go. Bring you back very quickly. There we are.
Being falsehoods. Earlier in the same chapter, it criticized people who say what they do not do, which could mean that they say what is not in their hearts. Hence, in the Quran 9:30, one might consider that the Quranic objection is not what they are saying with their mouths about the temple of God, but it is because their mouths say something different than their hearts. Perhaps their heart should be where the temple of God is, or perhaps they should truly believe in the temple of God is in Jerusalem or the Messiah, and not just say it with their mouths.
Okay, I get you. I get you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I got that. And I'll need.
So then, he does continue and
do a lot more.
Yeah.
I'll need to think about this a lot more, definitely. Yeah, because look, because the issue, only slight issue of that, okay, is that yes, okay, ذلك قولهم بأفواههم, but then it says يضاهئون قول الذين كفروا من قبل. So it's more like, it seems like the what is being blamed in this verse is actually what they are saying, because it's saying يضاهئون قول الذين كفروا من قبل. So that seems to be the criticism. The criticism is that they are imitating the speech of الذين كفروا before them. So this I think I'll need to think a lot more about this, and actually maybe read read his book and article about this. But definitely there's definitely something, a lot to think about in there. MashaAllah, it's a very well. I think like you said, you're right. To have this pique your interest, there's a lot. Looks to me like he's built a good, coherent argument.
Yeah. I think that's why I wanted to come back and share this with you, because I know you appreciate these kind of well thought out arguments, even if you don't necessarily subscribe or agree with them. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, there's one other person wants to come on. I'll bring them on. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, brilliant for bringing that to attention. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. You're cutting off a little bit there, so sorry if I'm talking over you. Okay, thank you, Zuriyad. And let's bring on Iron Man. Assalamu alaikum, Iron Man.
Wa alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry for the wait.
It's okay, bro. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, I just wanted to go over this word salah, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, the thing is, most people think that the word salah is a ritual prayer. But after me studying the Qur'an, I mean, I see it as not being a ritual prayer at all. The reason being, is, Allah, He tells us in the Qur'an. Let me just transmit it. Yeah, can you make my virtual cam bigger?
Oh, let me try to do that. Yeah, hold on. If I bring it like this, no, that doesn't work. Let me see how I can do that. Yeah, I think that's. How can I do this? No. Okay. I think that's the most I can do.
Yeah. I think the reason is, there's only two of us, so you've only got this particular feature.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'll see if I can correct it. One
Well,
sec.
we can see what you've got there. Yeah, maybe just correct it a
What
little.
about now? Is that better?
Yeah, probably a little bit. Trying to bring it. Maybe if I stop I need to remove my. Hold on. Let me try to remove my share, and then I can do this. No, do this.
Yeah, that's better.
That doesn't help. And does this better?
Yeah. This is better. I can see that. Okay. Well, over here in chapter 49, verse 16, Allah is saying, well, are you teaching God about your deen while God knows everything in the heavens and the earth? God is knowledgeable of all things. So my argument is, when the traditionalists perform this ritual prayer, they're actually teaching Allah our deen. Yeah, and over here, I think we are disregarding this ayah. Yeah, and we are doing something which we've actually inherited from our forefathers, our ancestors. Yeah, this is my opinion. I think this ritual prayer is an invention. Allah doesn't command us to perform this ritual prayer. Yeah, there could be words in the Quran that say sujood, and people think that this is a physical prostration. And the word ruku, which they think is bow. Yeah, physically, but I reckon it's much more than that. I don't think it's anything to do with some physical action that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires from us, like physical body movements. I think it's much deeper than that. And on top of that, like I said, my opinion is, when we are performing, well, those who perform this ritual prayer, they're actually teaching Allah our deen. Yeah, this is what they're doing. Yeah, they might say, oh, this ayah is out of context. But then Allah tells us, in another ayah, in their stories is a lesson for those who possess intelligence. This is not fabricated hadith. And then it continues, So the thing is, for example, in the month of Ramadan, they do a salat tarawih. Yeah, and they recite the Quran from beginning to end. So what are they actually doing? And on top of that, is there any command in the Quran where Allah is instructing the believers to recite the Quran back to him? Because I've got evidence from the Quran, which clearly says to recite the Quran back to the people. So is there an ayah in the Quran that instructs the believers to recite the Quran back to Allah?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't think most people think of it that way, that they're reciting the Quran back to Allah. But I understand what you mean, that in Salah, they recite the whole Quran back from beginning to end, and there's no real reason for it to be done in the Quran in that way. I definitely believe, accept fully what you said, that Allah is not requesting from us body motions, that these body movements and stuff like that, or what God wants from us, or that these are going to be the things which will help us or save us or stuff like that. I definitely accept that. I definitely agree with that. I still do, to be honest, I do think that Salah is something which is the world. It's known the world over. The world over, everybody has a Salah. Even if it's not the 5 daily prayers or the traditional prayers, these are not just Salah and nothing else is Salah, right? So you could go to, if an Arab person was going to to the Native Americans, he could ask them, okay, how do you pray? What is your Salah? And they would say, our Salah is like this, and they have a completely different Salah, right? And it doesn't have any sujood or ruku or anything like this. So this is what I was mentioning before, that I do believe, so I'm sort of like in a midway point between what you're saying and the traditional thing. I think that what God is commanding can span both. Okay, that God is neither confining us to one way of doing salah, a traditional way, and saying if no other way will be acceptable. Okay, nor is he just saying that that as if there is no actual ritual that you can do, or he's not commanding to a ritual. I do think that rituals do have a place, but what I'm saying is that they are the form that they can take is very broad. Okay, it doesn't have to be the traditional salah. That's how I see it. But I understand what you're saying. I understand that the view that taking the salah is like I don't see how it would be teaching others, teaching Allah the deen, right? أَتُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ, because where Allah just says to do salah, like you said, right? There is no we're not teaching Allah the way to do salah. He is telling us to do salah and leaving us to do the salah how we like, pretty much, with certain guidelines in the Quran. So that's how
Well,
I
you
see
know what,
it.
bro? I see a problem with that. I see a problem with that. You know why? Because people stand up, yeah, they perform this ritual prayer, and they say things like, "Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun, la a'budu ma ta'budun." So,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, who are they saying it to?
Yeah, who are
If
they
this is
saying?
a connection between the individual and God, yeah, who is he saying, yeah, "Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun" to?
Yeah, I understand.
He's
what
not
you
saying it to the people.
mean. Yeah.
He's not even facing the people.
I get
Yeah,
what
he's
you're
actually
saying.
saying
Exactly.
this to God. So the thing is, yeah, this is one of the reasons why I think we shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, ritual prayer and reciting things that were instructions to the messenger to recite to the people. I mean,
So
there's an ayah, yeah, on the screen where it says, "And it is a Quran which we have separated, that you might recite it to the people over a prolonged period, and we have sent it down progressively." Now, the thing is there an ayah in the Quran where Allah says, "Recite it back to me"?
No.
No, there isn't. And then on top of that, we are instructing Allah to say, "Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun," or you disbelieve. And then, "Qul huwallahu ahad."
I've never
Say
thought
He
of it
is
that way,
one. He
It's
is
very
Allah the
interesting.
one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the thing is, Allah already knows this. Yeah. That's why. Yeah. My argument is, yeah, that we're actually teaching Allah our deen. Yeah, this
I
is what
understand what
everyone
you're
is
saying.
doing, and they don't realize it. They don't realize, yeah, that this is what they are doing. They're actually teaching Allah our deen. Yeah,
Let me
the
ask you this.
Quran is meant to be a recitation to the people. Yeah, this is
If
how
they
people
don't,
get taught. Yeah,
if they,
when we recite it to them. Yeah,
can I ask you this? If they don't understand that they are doing something wrong like this, so like most people, me, I mean, I recite this as well. I recite in my salah, "Qul huwa Allahu ahad." I've never, in my mind, ever thought that I'm commanding Allah to say that, even though I understand now what it might seem like. Like if you just see somebody, person you didn't know anything about salah, and you see somebody standing in prayer and he's saying, "Qul huwa Allahu ahad," and you ask him, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm doing salah." "Who are you praying to?" "I'm praying to God." And you're like, "Okay, why are you telling God to say God is one?" I get that. I've never ever in my life thought of it that way. But what would you say about that? Then do you think are such people accountable? Because we've never thought about it. That and like you said, people all over the world are doing this, right? This is the traditional way of doing salah, and they see it as more as tilawa, right? So in the Quran, of course, you have, in English, you have the word says recite. In this verse, it says لِتَقْرَأَهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ. So you can read it to the people. Taqra from qira'a, from reader, but from read. But other verses say, it says when atlu al-Quran, that the Prophet said that he's been commanded to recite the Quran, and in one of the verses in Surah Al-Muzammil, which we already talked about, it says وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. The word rattil and tilawa, these mean more like reciting, literally reciting, as in like rehearsing something. Okay, وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. It's talking about doing that at night, So those verses are talking about somebody praying, the Prophet praying at night, standing up for prayer at night, and he is to make tilawa of the Quran. Okay, and also at the end of that same surah, we're talking about Surah Al-Muzammil here. Okay, Surah Al-Muzammil. I don't know the number of the surah off the top of my head, but at the end of that also it says, إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه. God knows that you stand up, for salah, or just stand up. It doesn't say for salah, so it can be accurate. Stand up for, half, a third, 2/3 of the night, half the night, or a third. And he knows that you cannot count this. Okay. Then it says, and also those who are with you. And then it says, فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. Because you can't maintain this, then read what is easy for you of the Quran. But it doesn't say read it to anybody. And of course, the context here is that they are reciting at night. So this is, God is alleviating the salah or the standing that the Prophet was doing at night. Instead of doing 2/3 or half or a third, you can instead recite some of the Quran. And it doesn't say recite it to anybody. And if the context is you're at home alone, reading the Quran, home alone in the middle of the night, it's not reading the Quran to people. It's not like you're going to be commanding this to other people. And and again, the beginning of the Quran talks about, tilawa, warattil al-Qur'ana tartila, and, sort of literally rehearse it, like sing it almost. Rattil al-Quran means like almost sing it, tartila. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's how I view it. So it's not. You're right. There's nothing which says to read the Quran to God, but there are many verses which says just read the Quran. Read it and just recite it and make tilawa of it, and to ponder it and stuff like that. Because it doesn't have to mean that if you're standing there in salah reading the Quran, it doesn't mean you have to be you're reading it to God. You're reading it for yourself, to yourself as well, right? To ponder it, to think on it, so that's how I would see it.
One more point I want to make, as well
yeah.
as they reciting the Quran back to God, which my understanding is, unknowingly they are teaching Allah our deen, right? And the other thing is, they say they bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God in the ritual prayer. And I think this is also wrong as well, because Allah tells us in the Quran that He is sufficient as a witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. And nowhere in the Quran is Allah commanding the believers to bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. So this is another problem that I see. Number one, in the azan, the calling of the prayer, and also they recite this in the ritual prayer.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, I've had these discussions before. I generally, to be honest, like I said, I usually don't agree with those. I think, but what you're saying is true. There is no, you don't have to recite. You have to say the shahada. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasul. You don't have to say that in the salah, and that's why I'm saying that the salah is something which God is commanding, and it's adaptable, and you can pray in pretty much however you want almost. So I'd actually like to ask you, what do you do for salah, or do you do salah? Do you have you don't have a ritual salah, I take it?
Well, I used to perform it, but after studying the Quran, I've come to realize that there is no ritual prayer, namaz, in the Quran.
So what do you do? What's your?
I don't do it. Yeah, my salah is reciting the Quran, bro. Reading, studying the Quran. If somebody's with me, this is what we do. Mornings.
What about alone? Do you still recite it alone, right?
Of course, bro. Read, study, reflect upon the Quran. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Will they not study, reflect, ponder upon the Quran, or are there locks upon their hearts?
Exactly.
Well, you know what, bro? I don't want to be one of those, who's got a lock upon his heart.
And do you have regular?
I'm going to study the Quran, bro. Alhamdulillah, that's what we believers are supposed to do. Study the Quran,
No, I'm with you wholeheartedly. So do you have regular times that you do it? Do you have regular? Do you do regular? Do you have I don't want to say a ritual, but do you do it in regular times? So, for example, in the Quran, it says, "Qima salah, establish salah, tarafay nahar wa zulufan min al-layl," right? 2 ends of the day and a portion of the night. Do you make sure that every day, basically, in the
bro, I
start
do
of the
my
day,
best.
after night?
Every day, bro. I study the Quran, read it.
No, I mean, do you
reflect
have
upon
times?
it.
Do you have time periods where, okay, in this time period, it's a duty. I have a duty to do salah with the Quran.
Bro, I think it can be done anytime now. I think we can do this.
Well.
We have to do our salah 24 hours a day.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Apart from sleeping, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I just wanted to know because I just wanted to have a general idea of what
Because
you.
salah to me, is to me is studying the Quran, reflecting upon it, acting upon it, teaching others. Yeah, this is what salah is. Yeah, and on top of that, fulfilling the duties and obligations which are in the Quran. This is the salah.
MashaAllah. So let me ask you, do you link this to the verse? There's one verse which says, "Inna salata kanat al mu'minina kitaban mawquta," right? So it says, truly the salah is upon the mu'minin, upon the faithful, kitaban, a book, mawquta, sort of like timely. So do you sort of read that as meaning that salah is the book, like you said? Yeah? Because I can
Yeah.
sort of see that being in that verse. What you're saying, your understanding of saying of salah, I can sort of see that being in that verse. That in the salata kanat ala al-mu'minin kitaban mawquta, that the salah is upon the faithful, basically a kitaban mawquta, sort of a book recited at regular, at timely, at times anyway. Kitaban
Yeah, bro.
mawquta.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we should be doing. That is the salah. That it's all to do with reciting, pondering, understanding, reflecting upon the Quran.
What about do you see sujood, ruku', not within salah but outside of salah? Do you
Bro, I don't think this is part of the ritual prayer.
No,
Sujood
yeah,
to me
I
is
understand. Yeah, outside
sujood to me
outside
is
salah.
submission.
Okay, yeah. So sujood is
Yeah,
submission,
yeah,
ruku'.
and you know what? Yeah. Sujood to me is submission, and if somebody wants to do a physical prostration, to me that's just an extreme way of doing sujood. But people can do that kind of sujood, but they haven't really submitted to God. They haven't really done sujood to the laws of God, which are found in the Quran. Yeah, they are doing sujood to laws which man has invented. For example, hadiths. Yeah, that's their sujood from the books of hadith, which is a physical prostration.
I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah. Mashallah. Thanks.
Yeah, but
Yes.
those who do submit to the laws of God, as in within their heart, yeah, they might do the extreme way of a physical prostration, a physical sujood, which could be going down on your knees, and on your hands, on your face, and cry as well,
Yeah.
because that's mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah. يخرون للأذقان سجدا ويبكون. Exactly. Yes. Brilliant. I think you have somebody else here who has the exact same views as you. ISAL. Here we have. Says there's no single ritual guidance in the Quran. Yeah, and I agree with that generally. But I also agree with this. Yes, there is wudu, right? About doing wudu. So, for example, so you do wudu before reading the Quran?
Well, bro, you have to be clean, yeah. But I think this word vudu, does it really exist in the Quran?
No, it
I mean,
doesn't.
the
Yes.
word is ghusl, isn't it? Aghsul,
Yeah. إذا
chapter
قمتم
5,
إلى
verse
الصلاة
6.
فاغسلوا. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So do
Yeah.
you do that
But this
before
vuzu
Salah?
is connected to the traditionalist vuzu. This,
Yeah, that's true.
bro, it can. Yeah, I mean,
Most of
yeah.
our
I mean,
most of our words are wrong or not Quranic anyway. That's true.
I mean,
So do
we
you
should
do
be
you?
clean. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we should be clean regardless, bro. But I reckon, chapter 5, verse 6 could be connected with a group salah where everyone has to be clean.
So
maybe
إذا
only
قمتم
one
إلى
people have to
الصلاة.
do.
Yeah,
Sorry?
إذا قمتم. So the verse being وإذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Oh, you who have faith, if you stand up for salah, then do this. So you mean that as being a group?
Yeah, bro, I think that
Whereas
could be
individually
connected to
you
a
you
group,
wouldn't have to.
a group salah. But individually, you should be clean
You should, I
regardless.
understand that. Yeah, you should be clean, but individually you wouldn't have to do, what this verse says to do for the salah, right? You just
Well, it
have to be
depends,
clean.
innit? I mean, what is salah? I mean, we've got to understand what the word salah is, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm deferring to what you are saying is salah. So what you're saying is salah. So in terms of your salah, you personally, when you're at home alone and you want to do salah in terms of reading the Quran and pondering it and stuff like that. You're already clean. Do you still do this ghusl that's mentioned in the verse?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. No. I just wanting to understand. That's all.
Yeah, no
Okay.
problem.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. And what about the other things, the other typical things that I'm sure other people would want to know about as well? Like the fasting and stuff like that. Do you do the fasting in Ramadan, or
Bro, I don't do the hunger fasting because I don't think hunger fasting is in the Quran, because Allah does not tell us do not eat or drink. I mean, there's many verses in the Quran where Allah says do not do this, do not do that, and it doesn't say do not eat or drink. Also, the word kulu washrabu, it might not be eat or drink. It could be consume and absorb.
Okay. All right.
So
Okay. So
I
what
think
do you say? What about Psalm? Do you have an idea? Well, what's your idea of what Psalm is?
I think Psalm is. I think the word here translated is abstaining.
From
Well, it depends on the context.
So what link would it have with Ramadan? So do you accept that Ramadan is the general month that Muslims say is Ramadan, or is it not the month that?
Bro, I don't think. According to the context, it says in the month of Ramadan, the Quran was revealed.
شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that is the only connection.
Yeah, but then it says فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصوم. So whoever witnesses the month of you, then they should fast, right? They
You know what?
Well, not fast, but صوم.
I think there's a video that Maverick X has made. Yeah, it got uploaded yesterday on YouTube, and he talks about Siyam. Yeah, and I think he's done a very good explanation of it. Yeah, so I think the best thing to do, is just watch that video. It's on a channel called Behram.
Yeah, put it
Behram
at the end of this stream, when this gets uploaded from StreamYard onto the channel. Be sure to put it in the comments, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I will
So
do.
that I and everybody else who is listening can have a look at that. Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, it's 2 hours long, and me telling you in a few
minutes,
sentences,
won't do it
justice to it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all good. It's all good. MashaAllah. Brilliant. Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add for us today?
No, bro, I just wanted to clarify this Salah thing to the viewers.
Yeah, brilliant. No problem. Excellent. This is what we're here for. This is exactly why I put this regular live stream for. It's exactly to have people come on and share their contemplation of the Quran. Exactly for this reason. And mashallah, today we've had an exceptional stream. Which is good,
before I finish, I just want to mention, Salah could be also a connection. Yeah, people getting together, connecting. And reading, reciting, reflecting upon the Quran.
Yes. So coming together and reading, reciting. So like what we're doing here, inshallah.
Yeah. This to me is called a Salah session.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Good. Inshallah, we'll be from the Musallin. I mean. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so if there's nothing else, mashallah, we've had a very productive stream tonight. We've had, what I presented, and we had Ziryab came and read, gave us a new perspective on the whole verse of Ibn Allah. We had a very nice addition from Khabab about Surah Al-Asr, which I think was brilliant. And we've had you now as well, was given a perspective which I was hoping actually would be presented on this channel. You're the first to come on and actually do it, which is good. Alhamdulillah. And just to remind everybody else and everybody listening, this stream is open to anybody and everybody, Muslim, non-Muslim, anybody can come on and share any contemplation that they have of the Quran and feel perfectly free and comfortable in doing that. It's all good. All right, brilliant. Okay, thank you, Ayman. I'm going to take you off now. Is that okay?
You're welcome, bro. Yes, no
Nice one.
problem.
Brilliant. Take care. Okay, let's see. I'll just check the comments quickly because we've gone over 2 hours, but I think it was worth it, definitely. I don't think I'm going to be able to check all the comments that I've missed up to now. So if anybody has anything they want to add, could you just do it now? So, recopy any comment you've made further up and put it in the chat now so I can see it at the bottom. And I'll have a look at that if need be. Yeah, so it looks like others were having a conversation about this. Check out Haq's latest video. I don't know who that is, but if you have a video recommendation, everybody, just once this uploads, just put the link in the comment section so anybody watching can have a look. And does Allah ask us to pray to Him at all? The verse of Salah is for us and not for God. Therefore, if you look at the Salah is rather than for God, then there is no problem with reciting it. So that's another perspective. And we have here, or is this a conversation that's going on and I'm highlighting it when I shouldn't be? So when we read Surah Al-Ikhlas, we are reading it to ourselves and each other rather than Allah. Yes, I mean, that's a perspective that I would say for myself, that like I said, I've never thought of myself reading it to others, to God anyway. But I can understand Iron Man's perspective, definitely. Okay. All right, guys, I think we'll end it there. Jazakallah khair. Thanks everybody for coming on, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.